the surface of a lake is frozen in severe winter. Surface of a lake is frozen in severe winter, but the water at its bottom is still liquid. What is the reason? Fine. So the question is about why bottom of a lake body is not frozen in severe winter, though the upper layer or the topmost layer is frozen. Fine. So what are the options? Options are A. Ice is a bad conductor of heat. B. Since the surface of the lake is at the same temperature as the air, no heat is lost. C. The density of water is maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. And D. None of the above. So let us discuss this question. This question is about one of the very important properties of water, and that is the density of water is highest at 4 degrees Celsius. Fine. So we know that whenever any liquid is cooled, or whenever we lower down temperature of any liquid, its density goes on increasing. And that is also true for water. The density of water also increases as we cool down water from its normal temperature. And this happens because the volume of any liquid, in this case water, goes on reducing and the mass is constant. Right? So when mass is constant and when volume is getting reduced, we can say that density will go on increasing, because density is equal to mass upon volume. And as volume is reducing and mass is constant, that means as denominator is reducing and as numerator is constant, we can say that our answer, that means density, will be increasing in this case. Right? So this is the normal property exhibited by most of the liquid and even water, but up to 4 degrees Celsius only. So let us discuss this question. Normally, for any liquid with decrease in temperature, density increases. So this is very important point. For any liquid, temperature reduces, density will increase. But this particular principle is true for water only up to 4 degrees Celsius, right? But for water, this is true up to 4 degrees Celsius, that is below 4 degrees Celsius. That means if we try to cool down water below 4 degrees Celsius, then the density of water will not increase. Rather, it will again start decreasing. And this is one of the most important property associated with density of water. Density of water is highest at 4 degrees Celsius, right? So this water with higher density, that means water at 4 degrees Celsius, will sink below water with lower density, that means water which is less or which is at less temperature than 4 degrees Celsius. Fine. So whichever is heavy will sink down. And we have discussed that water at 4 degrees Celsius will have high density, and that's why it will be heavier than water at lesser degree Celsius temperatures, and hence this water will sink down, right? Next point. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Right? So that was one part. That was one part that we have discussed. That water's density is highest at 4 degrees Celsius. And if we cool down water below 4 degrees Celsius, then density will increase. Density will decrease. Now, as we have said that water is highest, the density of water is highest at 4 degrees Celsius, it will be heavier than water which is at lower degree Celsius temperature. And hence this 4 degrees Celsius water will sink down, right? Now, next part, second part of this discussion is, we know that water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and it will have lower density. So as we keep on decreasing the temperature of water from 4 degrees Celsius, the density of water will be decreasing in this case. And as we reach up to 0 degrees Celsius, water will freeze. And what will be the density? Density will be lower than 4 degrees Celsius. Next point. And it will remain on top. And as a result of that, though water has frozen at 0 degrees Celsius, its density will be lower compared to water at 4 degrees Celsius. And hence, that water which has frozen now will remain on top because of its lower density compared to water at 4 degrees Celsius. And that's why the water at lower or water at bottom will remain in liquid state even if the surface water has frozen. And that is the phenomenon. So let me explain this once more because it is complicated. So let us assume that this is a lake body. This is a lake body. So we'll be discussing first part of this particular example. Now let us consider this is upper layer of water and this is lower layer of water, and let us consider that there are only two layers of water for the simplicity of our explanation. And this upper layer, let's consider its temperature has reduced to 4 degrees Celsius now, right? And this water body or this lower layer of water is at, let's say, it is at 6 degrees Celsius, right? So density will be higher of this particular upper layer. So high density. It will have high density. And as it will have high density than this water at 6 degrees Celsius, what will happen? This upper layer of water will sink down. It will sink down. And this 6 degrees Celsius water will be at the top, right? Now, let us consider the second example. So, I hope you have understood this. As the water at 4 degrees Celsius has high density, it will go down. And the water at low density, it will come up. Now, let us consider another stage. Now, let us consider another stage. So, in this stage, we have again two layers, upper layer of water and lower layer of water. And let us consider that this upper layer is at 0 degrees Celsius and this lower level is at 4 degrees Celsius. Why we are taking 4? Because we have discussed that the density of water is highest at 4 degrees Celsius. So its density will be high. It will be at high density compared to this water, which is at low density. And this is the property exhibited by water. Fine. So as this water with 0 degrees Celsius is at low density, it will remain at top. Fine. It will remain at top, and the water at 4 degrees Celsius, because of its high density, will remain at bottom. Fine. And as a result of this, at 0 degrees Celsius, we know that water freezes. At 0 degrees Celsius, water freezes, and that's why this upper layer will be converted into ice. It will be converted into ice, and lower layer will remain in water or liquid form. Fine. So I hope you have understood this particular discussion. So based upon this, we can say that the water of a lake body at the bottom will remain in liquid stage as a result of one of the property of water, and that property is its density is highest at 4 degrees Celsius. And because of this property, we can easily say that water at bottom is liquid even if surface water has frozen. So answer is the density of water is maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. Fine. So I hope it is clear to you. Now next question, and hence answer for this is C. Consider the following statements. First statement, biodiversity is normally greater in the lower latitudes as compared to the higher latitudes. Second statement, along the mountain gradients, biodiversity is normally greater in the lower altitude as compared to higher altitudes. Which of the following statements given are correct? So you have to identify amongst these two statements which one is or are correct. Options are A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, and D, neither 1 nor 2. So let us discuss this question. This question is about the biodiversity. Though we know that biodiversity is a variety of species, genetic and ecosystem diversity. Fine. So biodiversity consists of 3 different varieties: genetic variety, species variety and ecosystem variety. But though on the face of it, it looks that this question is related to biodiversity, it is not. Rather, it is related to those factors which are favorable, because of which lower latitudes will have high biodiversity compared to higher latitudes. And similarly, lower altitudes of a mountain gradient have high biodiversity than the upper altitudes of mountain gradient. Right? So this question is about the factors that are influencing biodiversity. So let us discuss this question. Firstly, first statement. So this first statement is about the lower latitudes having high biodiversity than higher latitudes. So this idea is also referred as the latitudinal diversity gradient, meaning that as you move from equator towards pole, diversity is reducing. And why diversity reduces? Reasons are: first, favorable climatic conditions in the tropical region. In the tropical region, we have favorable climatic conditions, and hence the growth and the diversity will be high in tropical regions. And what are those climatic conditions which are providing good habitat for life in tropical region? It is rainfall. So rainfall is good in the tropical region because we know that the trade winds converge at the equatorial region, and these trade winds give more rain in the equatorial region, and other tropical region also receives sufficient amount of rainfall, followed by sunlight. So sunlight is also good, means sunlight is also available in the tropical region, as the rays of sun are direct on the tropical region, and that's why they do not have to cover more distance from the atmosphere, which is the case with the temperate and polar region. And that's why in temperate and polar region we have unavailability of sufficient amount of sunlight, and that is one of the reasons why higher latitudes have low biodiversity. Fine, but that is not the case with tropical region, because tropical regions have favorable rainfall as well as sunlight. Next is, there is greater habitat diversity towards the equator, creating more niches for species. So as habitat diversity is more in the tropical region, especially near equator region, we will have more niche diversity for different organisms. And more the niche diversity, more will be the biodiversity, because niche determines the functional role as well as position of different species of organisms. And as these as this niche diversity is more, we can safely say that biodiversity will also be more, right? So because of these reasons, the biodiversity at tropical region is more. Moreover, greater primary productivity at the equator has led to greater biodiversity. That means, see, what is primary productivity? Primary productivity is the rate at which biomass is getting accumulated at the level of producers. And as conditions are favorable in the equatorial and tropical region for the growth of producers, we have more number of producers, and more the number of producers will have excellent primary productivity in the equatorial as well as tropical region. And as primary productivity of producers is more, they'll be able to feed more trophic levels, and hence biodiversity is more in the tropical and equatorial locations. And that's why the equator or tropical locations have more biodiversity than higher latitudes. Second statement is about mountain gradients. See, mountain gradients are very much similar to the latitudes of the earth, because at the lower mountain gradients, that means at the lower altitudes of mountain gradient, will have sufficient good conditions for life to occur. That means conditions will not be very harsh, favorable climatic conditions will be there. And those climatic conditions in the form of rainfall as well as availability of sunlight will be helpful for the growth of life in the lower altitudes of mountain gradient. But as we go towards the higher altitudes of mountain gradient, conditions go on becoming severe. And hence, at the top of the mountain gradients, we have ice, presence of ice is there. The snowfall is available in that location and not the rainfall. Similarly, at those locations, the availability of sunlight also decreases. And as a result of all these factors, the top gradients of mountain ecosystem have less biodiversity compared to lower gradients of mountain ecosystem. And that's why both these statements are correct statements, and hence answer to this question is C. Fine. So let me take you back to the statements. So statements are: biodiversity is normally greater in the lower latitudes as compared to higher latitudes. We have discussed this because lower latitudes have good conditions in the form of climatic conditions. Also, primary productivity is more at lower latitudes, and niche diversity is also more at lower latitudes, and hence biodiversity is more. And that's why first statement is correct statement. Second is, along the mountain gradients, biodiversity is normally greater in the lower altitudes as compared to higher altitudes. Again, lower altitudes have good or favorable conditions for the growth of life, as there is availability of rainfall and sunlight, which is not available at the higher altitudes of mountain gradient. And that's why even this statement is correct statement, and hence answer is C, both 1 and 2.